So our next guest speaker is Gary Cohen. He has been a dedicated activist for justice in Bhopal for more than 17 years, more than some of you have been alive, right? so he sits on the International Advisory Board of, I hope I'm saying this right, Savavana Trust, which provides free medical care to people that were traumatized and hurt by the Bhopal tragedy 20 years ago. He's a longtime advocate for environmental health and author of the book Fighting Toxins. So we're very fortunate to have him. Thank you so much. Please give a warm round of applause to Gary Cohen.
I'm so glad to see all of you, a sea of young people with hope in your hearts and a fire for justice in your bellies. It's a beautiful, sunny spring day to stand up for human rights around the world. So I'm here to tell you a story about hope and horror together. 25 years ago, Union Carbide built a pesticide factory in Bhopal, India, with technology that they knew was unproven and unsafe. After running the factory for a few years, it became clear it was not going to make any money. So the company cut back on safety systems, personnel training, and other measures that could have prevented a major accident. When Union Carbide conducted its own safety audit, it found many serious breaches of safety and malfunctions that put the workers and the surrounding communities at risk. But since the company was not making money, they made a conscious decision to let the factory run down while they looked for someone to buy it. A local journalist followed the factory's decline by talking to the workers. 5 months before that fateful night of the gas, the journalist wrote an article with the headline, "Bhopal on the brink of disaster." His dire warning was not heeded. Around midnight, December 3rd, families in Bhopal were awakened by terrible burning in their eyes and lungs. Within minutes, children, mothers, and fathers staggered into the street, gasping for air. As they ran in complete terror, someone yelled the Union Carbide factory had exploded, spewing poisonous gas throughout the city. Soon, thousands of people lay dead in the main streets, with every taxi and ox cart weighted down with injured and terrified refugees. No one in the emergency room knew what the toxic gases were nor how to treat the patients. By the morning, more than 5,000 people were dead and 500,000 people were injured. At the time, the company said the gas was no more harmful than tear gas. For 20 years now, however, Union Carbide and now Dow Chemical have withheld internal company studies on the composition of the gases and the health impact studies that they themselves did. Bhopal is the Hiroshima of the chemical industry. In Bhopal, the world has learned what chemical terror looks like. And as we've watched the fallout from Bhopal over the last 20 years, we have learned a great deal about the culture of this industry and its approach to human rights and health and safety. 20 years have passed, but today in Bhopal, more than 100,000 people remain sick from their chemical exposures. The amount of compensation that the company paid to the survivors has not been enough to even cover basic medical expenses, let alone costs associated with disabilities and inability to work. A whole new generation of children have been born to the parents who were exposed, and they themselves are having health impacts. They've received no compensation whatsoever. The average survivor has received about $800 for 20 years of suffering. The abandoned factory remains the same as the day Union Carbide left it, and employees ran for their lives. Sacks of unused pesticides lay strewn in storerooms. Toxic waste litters the grounds and continues to leak into the neighborhood well water supply. After the terrorist attack on the World Trade Center, the site was cleaned up in 9 months. After 20 years, the Union Carbide factory has still not been cleaned up. Dow Chemical, the new owners of Union Carbide, claim they have nothing to do with the disaster in Bhopal. Yet there is a pending arrest warrant for Carbide and its former CEO, Warren Anderson, because they failed to appear to face criminal charges for the disaster. In fact, the Indian government has issued an extradition order for Anderson, but the US government has denied the extradition. Meanwhile, we know that Anderson is living on Long Island in a plush home playing golf with his corporate friends. So a powerful lesson of this tragedy is that many global corporations believe they can get away with murder. Literally. So why are we protesting at the Indian Embassy if the real culprit is Dow Chemical, the parent company of Union Carbide? Because the Indian government needs to be pressured to bring Dow to justice. We need the Indian government to assure that Dow cleans up the abandoned pesticide factory. We need the Indian government to compel Dow and Union Carbide to appear in court to stand trial for criminal charges against them. Can you imagine the largest chemical company in the world is harboring a fugitive from justice in the world's worst industrial disaster? Finally, we need to make the Indian government provide clean, piped drinking water to the people who continue to drink water contaminated with chemicals leaking off the site. Without Indian government support, it is harder to bring Dow to justice. Bhopal is one of the most powerful examples of the nightmare of corporate-driven globalization. The largest corporations have emerged as the principal governing institutions on the planet. And we have seen in Bhopal and Burma and Baton Rouge that these companies operate without an environmental health or human rights framework. We have learned in those 20 years that every child on the earth is being born with a host of toxic chemicals already in their bodies. We have learned that every mother on the planet is passing toxic chemicals to their newborns through gestation and breastfeeding. We have learned that all of us in this room and all of us that we know and all of us on the planet are carrying the poisons of the chemical industries in our bodies. These chemicals are linked to cancer, birth defects, learning disabilities, asthma, and a growing list of diseases. In the United States, the chance of a woman getting breast cancer is 1 in 7. The chance of a man getting cancer is almost 1 in 2. Learning disabilities is 1 in 6, and there's millions and millions of kids with asthma. In essence, the chemical industry is conducting an uncontrolled chemical experiment on all of life. And all this is being done without our consent and mostly without our knowledge. We consider this toxic trespass against us. We've literally been branded by this industry. If we were to test you, we would find Monsanto's PCBs. We would find DuPont's Teflon chemicals. We would find Dow's pesticides and dioxin in your blood, in your fat. So we've become united in a community, united by a web of Dow's poisons. Welcome to chemical globalization. By anyone's definition of human rights, the fact that infants in Bhopal and in Boston are being born with a body burden of chemicals represents a gross violation of human rights and a violation against the sacredness of life itself. Please stand up if you think that children have a right to be born toxic-free. And now put your hand over your heart if you believe that women have a right to breastfeed their infants without passing toxins onto them. You see, you are the future of the human rights movement on this planet. You can sit down. If this violence was not bad enough, the chemical industry's threat to our lives does not end with the slow and continuous poisoning of life. No. The Bhopal disaster demonstrated that chemical facilities can be deadly to vast numbers of people if they blow up, either through accidents or negligence or because of a terrorist act. Yet in 20 years, the industry has done little to switch to safer chemicals that can provide us with greater security and safety. This reality has come home to us in a very powerful way since 9/11. According to the FBI, the CIA, and other federal agencies, there are 112 chemical plants nationwide that could cause a Bhopal-like catastrophe, killing over 1 million people if they were attacked by terrorists. Additionally, everyday rail tankers full of chlorine gas are traveling through major American cities. If one of these tankers exploded in the middle of New York, or Washington, or Pittsburgh, thousands of people could be killed in a matter of minutes. Just last month, a chlorine tanker derailed in South Carolina, killing 5 people and sending hundreds to the hospital. So the government doesn't let people bring nail clippers onto airplanes, but they're letting tankers full of chlorine gas run through every American city. How crazy is that? As I stand here, the chemical companies in the Bush administration are resisting any meaningful regulation that would require them to replace the most dangerous chemicals with safe substitutes. And who is the largest producer of chlorine? Dow Chemical. The cruel irony of this situation is that President Bush waged war in Iraq on the false pretext that Iraq had weapons of mass destruction. But we don't have to spend billions of dollars and ruin thousands of lives looking for weapons of mass destruction overseas. They're right here, in our neighborhoods, in our food, in our bodies. The chemical industry turns out to be one of the nation's greatest threats to our health and security. So you see, Bhopal has come home much closer in the last 20 years. Now we understand that protecting our families in Boston or New York is linked to protecting the families in Bhopal. We are all living under a similar poison cloud. If we do not bring Dow Chemical to justice for its Bhopal legacy, then we send a message to global corporations that it's okay to murder people and poison them in the pursuit of profit. I'm happy to tell you that the people in Bhopal have not given up. They operate a clinic that offers free medical care to the survivors using traditional Indian herbal medicine and yoga and Western medicine. They have set up a trust to provide small-scale income generation schemes for women survivors, and the women themselves have set up a fund to support women fighting corporate crime all over India. The Bhopal survivors have also globalized their struggle and helped support more than 250 activities worldwide against Dow last December 3rd. The women in Bhopal are not victims. And as they will tell you in their rap song, they are flames, not flowers. They do not wilt before corporate power. In India, when women are abused, they take up their brooms in self-defense. That's their weapon of choice if they're being abused by their husbands or someone else that's trying to hurt them. So last year, they delivered 5,000 brooms to the Dow's headquarters in Bombay. Clean up your mess, they said. And they have delivered brooms to Dow officials in 60 countries. And we are very thankful to Amnesty International for bringing all of you into this global campaign for justice in Bhopal. I will leave you with one image. Last December, I had the opportunity to visit Bhopal for the 20th anniversary. I walked through the rusting ruins of Union Carbide's abandoned factory. The factory is hideous and rotting. The control room remains chaotic and cluttered, frozen in time, like the day they ran away. It is a powerful scene of one of the worst crimes against humanity in the 20th century. It's ground zero, the heart of the wounding by the petrochemical industry. Yet in the middle of this scene of devastation and toxic contamination, tulsi trees have grown up. In India, the tulsi tree is sacred. It represents the divine healing power of creation and has been used for many medicinal purposes by people throughout India for millennia. Tulsi is also used in the Bhopal clinic that serves the medical needs of the survivors. All across India, people grow tulsi trees in their home gardens. It connects them to God and to the earth. So the tulsi trees that have grown up amidst the ruins of the Bhopal factory are like the survivors who have continued to fight for their basic human rights to health and justice for 20 years. They refuse to be defeated by Dow. They refuse to be made expendable. By demanding justice, we join them in affirming the sacredness of life. So having heard all that, I want to ask you a question. Will we sit quietly by while children are being poisoned? No. Will we let Dow get away with murder without ever facing trial? No. We must tell the government of India loud and clear, bring Dow to justice. Bring Dow to justice. Bring Dow to justice. Bring Dow to justice. Bring Dow